Now, following the declaration of the candidate of the People's Democratic Party as winner of Delta State governorship election, people have been reacting, and one of them is the governor of the state, Ifeanyi Okowa. Governor Okowa joins us now to speak about his party's victorious candidate and what his win means for the state going forward. Governor Okowa, thank you so much for joining us on Nigeria Decides 2023, our election coverage of the state and of this governorship and State House of Assembly elections.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Well, congratulations. We know that your candidate, the PDP candidate in Delta State, won the election. So can you just give us your brief assessment of the conduct of the election in Delta State and what the people of Delta State can expect from Mr. Sheriff from Mr. Sheriff?
Yeah. In the first instance, I want to thank the INEC and all its officials for staying true to the promises made that we'll have a free and fair election. I want to thank the security agencies for doing the much they could to ensure a fairly peaceful election. In the first instance, we give God thanks for giving us victory. We worked hard for it, and we did get victory on the field. Even when we lost in 4 of the local governments, we were able to get victory in 21 out of the 25 local government areas and got the overall victory with about 120,000 votes margin, which is a clear attestation of the fact that PDP is in commanding control in the state electoral process. As much as security agencies did do, we definitely did have some incidents on Saturday, and that is actually very unfortunate because in Ughelli North, in one of our strongholds, voters were dispersed and injured, and in Ifeanyi, where we call Ifeanyi ward, and 11 units had to be cancelled, and that was obviously a stronghold. We also had some of those issues in some places. Even in Mosuga, one of our agents was shot dead, very unfortunately, along with one of our party leaders of the PDP. But despite all this, the people came out voting massively for the PDP, and we give God thanks for all that has happened. Even in places where electoral materials were hijacked and thumb-printed, INEC stood with what they have said, and some of those votes in Ward 7 and Ward 8 in Ethiop West had to be cancelled because they bypassed the beavers and rotary saws from ballot papers that were thumb-printed. By and large, the electoral process was very fair, and both the INEC officials and the coalition officials, along with security agencies, did do the best that they could. And I think that Deltans know what is right. In the last 8 years, we have done the best that we could really offer, considering the difficulties at the time. And with all that we've done in terms of development of infrastructure in various aspects, the roads, the various other infrastructure in terms of the health facilities, school facilities, and the fact that we also inaugurated 3 new universities, which are all fully functional with the healthcare system that we have and the contributory healthcare, which enables all mothers and children under 5 to receive free healthcare. The people are quite excited, and I think that this, with so many other programs, entrepreneurial programs that were created, enabling several thousands of youths get themselves self-employed, has really touched the hearts of the people. And now that we have victory, luckily for us, we chose the Right Honorable Sheriff Oborowore, who has been Speaker in the last 6 years. So he understands our programs, knows the foundation, and we've been building on that foundation. So it's just for him to continue to build and to achieve more, staying put on the program with some new programs which he also has introduced. But the real thing is, he's not going to learn on the job, he's in path. of the growth, of the development of the foundation and the growth that we have witnessed in the last 8 years. So he definitely will seamlessly come into office and be able to continue on the fast track. So we are very hopeful that Deltans will be expecting a lot more. And mine is to continue to pray for him, offer advice where necessary, and pray that the youths, the women, and the elders, the traditional institutions, and the religious institutions will continue to offer him the support that they did offer to me through this period. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so you're talking a lot about healthcare. You talked a lot about education and youth development in Delta State. Your candidate that won did not show up for the Arise television debates that was held, where the candidates were supposed to address the people of Delta State with their plans. He sent in a letter explaining why. Same thing with the APC candidate, but I guess that's passed. Now he's won. Particularly about the economic metrics of Delta State. You're talking about, as you just showed on the screen there, Delta State, despite its wealth, 73% of its revenue comes from FAC allocations. Only 24% is from its internally generated revenue. If you look at the employment, you talk about youth employment in Delta State and what the PDP is going to be doing going forward. I think unemployment, if you look at the figures, about 31% unemployment, another 21 or 22% underemployment. You put that together, 5 out of 10. Okay, yeah, so 31.1% unemployment and 24% underemployment. So that is 55%. That is 5 out of every 10 individuals in Delta States are either overqualified for work or out of a job. I'm from Ughelli North. I hail from Ughelli North. I have cousins from there. Most of them are either in Abuja or Lagos. There is an outflow of youth leaving Delta State because there are no opportunities. So can you really say that Delta State has worked for the youth there, where the economic metrics are pointing in the opposite direction?
In the first instance, you're talking about a candidate not coming for the Arise television debates. I'm aware that I did ask him, and he did tell me that he got that invitation a night to the debate that was called for. And I don't think that that was the right invitation. If you're going to have a debate, I giving some days of notice because they have. From what I'm told, that debate took place on Wednesday. I didn't watch it, but he got the invitation on a Tuesday to come for a debate on Wednesday. And I was just wondering why I criticized not Arise, because I know that you're a good station. If the elections are held on the 11th, would you have had that debate? What was the rush about the debates? I think it's something we need to interrogate. But in the real instance, how could you deliver an invitation within 24 hours of the time of debate? I don't think that that is ethical. I thought that I needed to speak about this. About the youth unemployment and the rest, I do not criticize the statistics that people put forth there. But we have every reason to believe that many of the statistics that we have out there is not something we can trust. We have been in this state, and people know, and throughout this nation, they know that a lot of entrepreneurial education and our youth have been engaged in entrepreneurial trainings with support programs that have taken several thousands out of the streets. There's no doubt about that. But I do not want to begin to discuss the issues of statistics that are laid out there, because I do know also that in 2018, 2019, when studies were done, it didn't relate with these current statistics that you're throwing out. So a lot of things are out there. We find it. I've been a governor for 8 years. I've been Secretary of State government, and I've been in the Senate. If you watch sometimes the statistics that you put forth in this nation, it fluctuates in such a manner that would not stand empirical analysis. So I truly do not want to go forth to talk about that. But here in this state, I know that with the various entrepreneurial programs we have taken a lot of youth out of the streets. That does not mean that so many youth may not still be unengaged. because there are lots of factors that lead to that. And lots of factors that lead to that will go into issues of population explosion, it will go into the issues of the inflationary tendencies and several other factors. But ours is to build a foundation for growth, and that foundation is to ensure that our youths are getting educated. I just talked to you about the inauguration of free universities that's continued to take people out of the space where they are just not able to find further education. We're doing a lot in technical and vocational studies in this state, and people know it, the youths are appreciative of it. We have a lot of entrepreneurial programs and follow-up programs that have really built the youth, our girl child, even the women, and we have so many programs when it comes to the widows, and all these programs are working and functional. So when certain statistics are just reeled out without really having a cross-section with the government and having to understand what they are doing. And when you take sample sizes that are not cannot be truly tested, I don't want to join issues with them, but I think that the people of Delta State know that a lot has been done. But in a country where the economy is generally down and battered, it is definitely not going to be possible to take much more people out of the market considering what we have. But you also do understand, you are relating to the fact that we have oil production levels that are high and internally generated revenue is low, just about 25%. Yes, we do agree with that because the enabling environment we are trying to create. But unfortunately, the situation in this country and the policy directions generally have not actually from the federal level allowed us to grow beyond where we are at the moment. That is definitely one step forward. And then considering the oil companies, we do know that they are not expanding, they are rather static. We're hoping that they begin to move forward because the oil economy is supposed to expand into what to look at, into gas development and the rest, where we can create more jobs from downstream gas development. Unfortunately, we don't to expand industries and enable them to grow. We also know that we have issues with the financial sector and the fact that we are not able to get funds at cheap cost. So industries are finding it difficult to survive. We're trying to grow the micro and small industries. We are succeeding to some extent, but it is really getting difficult because people cannot have funds to borrow. And when the funds are available, they are at very high cost. So industries can't just grow. Lagos, yes, you may see people exiting to Lagos, but I think that is reducing quite a lot in very recent times, usually most likely now from Delta State. A few may be going to Lagos, but I think that a lot is going on. You mentioned the Ughelli area, a very highly populated area, there's no doubt. A lot of job is being created, but we cannot turn things around just in a few years. The federal level, there are lots of issues and we are not able to go get to where we ought to go. Obviously constrains the state from being able to perform at its best. But having a self-assessment, I think we've done quite a lot. Our people are happy about that.
Okay, Governor, if time and again, every time we have these exclusive interviews with governors of states and we give them these statistics, which, by the way, come from the government, the Bureau of Statistics, the NBS, they say what you just say, that you won't join issues with the stats, they disagree with them. Why don't the states provide their own statistics that we can use and measure against what the Bureau of Statistics is coming out? And speaking of stats, you just mentioned the constraints. Delta State's debt.
Comment
okay.
on that.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, go on. Okay.
Delta State debt.
Our own statistics does not flow. The Nigerian Bureau for Statistics itself, I've had reason to criticize it subtly on some occasions because sometimes you find the statistics come out of them, and within the next 2-3 months, you find a totally different statistics. And by the time you do a proper analysis, you just find that they don't they don't flow at all. And so I just said I don't want to join issues with it. I'm not a statistician, but I'm intelligent enough to know when something really flows the way it ought to flow. But I think that there is a need to do a lot more when it comes to being able to reel out figures that are genuine figures that are dependable and figures that can enable us flow. Yeah.
Okay. So going forward, will the new governor that is still under the PDP will he start to share statistics on a regular basis from Delta State that can let us know how well the state is doing?
Why not? I can offer him that advice, but it is for him to run his government. He's the one going to run his government, not I. We are trying to talk about the debts.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
I heard you trying to speak some about the debts.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I think the figures there, 154 billion, that's domestic debt in Naira. Your in USD, foreign debt is about 60-something, there it is, $61.4 million. If you convert that, I think total debt package for Delta State, you're approaching over 200 billion or so. How much are you leaving in the state coffers for your successor that will allow him to be able to reach, or rather meet the economic goals that you set for the states? And will you be constrained with that level of debt in Delta?
No, obviously not constrained, and I'm sure that if you look at the background, because when people talk about debt, unfortunately, we don't take time to look at exactly what the background is. If you really go back to check that debt, you'll find that the bulk of the debt came in from previous government. And what we have done is to pay down that debt to a reasonable level. If you want to understand, by the time we came in, it was quite tough. We couldn't pay salaries. That was the time 2015 to 2017 when we had issues with the recession that we did have. And what we did, almost all governments of the nation, through the federal government process, restructured debts that all states had at that time. We worked with the federal government and we restructured all those debts over a period of about 30 years. And the implication of that is that whatever existing debt that we restructured over 30 years goes in multiples at the final payment, but it's left as a debt that you're paying over a period of 30 years. So if you go back to check that record, you find that Delta State had gone close to about 300 because of that restructuring, but that debt has, over the past 8 years, have been paid down to where you have it at the moment. So it's that restructured debt that you begin to see as a flag of that reason, but it has been going down very remarkably. And it will be paid over the period of 8 years. It's getting out of the 30 years now. So the next government begins to pay a part of it, and then that side is going to flow at a reasonable level. It was not done for Delta State alone. It was done for all the states of the Federation, and that was good economic sense at that point in time. But otherwise, for the internal debts that we took at the time, most of the debts will be exiting from it on May 29th. On May 29th, because that's where we have a drawdown to, and we structure in such a way that we're paying that in that level. But there is some money we took recently, but that is called, I would rather call it a bridging finance rather than a debt, because the federal government is owing Delta State 217 billion naira, and then owing that amount, they've told us they cannot pay at once. They are going to pay over a period of about between 4 and 5 years. And they are going to pay on quarterly installments. So what we had to do was to take part of that money. Now, initially we wanted to take 100 billion, but we ended up taking 91 billion. And that 91 billion is supposed to be part of that money that the federal government is owing us, which is 217 billion. And what it means is that rather than the federal government paying what they're supposed to pay to us on a quarterly basis, they'll be paying back to the bank. And when they finish paying back to the bank, that 91 billion, the rest of the money they'll start paying to the state on a quarterly basis. So that's more of a bridging finance and not really a debt, because the federal government is actually the one owing the debt. So it's important that we have a clear understanding of this. Delta State is very solvent and we're moving. We're very comfortable with our debt exposure. And even when the rumors, I'm glad that you have the real figures, because one of the opponents of Right Honorable Sheriff was busy lying to the public that it was 850 billion, which was just an unfortunate lie that he told to the public. But if you go back to look at those records, go back to the 2015 record after the restructuring, you'll find that we have paid down that debt very remarkably. And Delta State is very, very comfortable at the current debt level.
Well, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, the current governor of Delta State, handing over to a new individual. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for this important discussion and for adding up all the numbers for us this afternoon as well.
Thank you.